Welcome to the NAIFA webinar series, providing you with timely information and training on topics of interest. This is Brendan Burnett, Director, Professional Development and Education Programs. Today we are presenting 7 Steps to Successful Technology Adoption, a webinar with Juncture. With me today are Julie Cochran and Terry Shaw. Julie is Juncture's Director of Consulting and Training. With more than a decade of experience in the financial services industry prior to joining Juncture, Julie understands the inner workings of a financial advisory firm. Focusing on each firm's unique goals, she has consulted with hundreds of financial advisors to guide them in maximizing their technology investment through better CRM use in their firms. Julie also leads Juncture's team of consultants and trainers to provide valuable resources to their clients, helping each firm become more efficient with their daily business practices through instructional classes, customized training, and business consulting. And Terry Shaw is NAIFA's Director of Business Development and Strategic Partnerships. Terry is committed to working with our preferred providers to ensure that NAIFA members receive outstanding money-saving member benefits that will help their businesses and improve their bottom line. And Terry will be facilitating our question and answer session today so that Julie can answer all of your questions concerning Juncture and technology adaptation. In the webinar, you may type your questions in the question box on the right side of your screen. All questions will be answered during the question and answer session at the end of the webinar. This webinar is being recorded. A web link to the webinar recording will be emailed to you. Julie, welcome to the webinar.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. This is probably one of my favorite topics to talk about, but I think for a lot of firms is most impactful because when I speak to firms, whether it's 1 user, whether it's 100 users, this is something that sometimes they struggle with. It could be the fact that maybe not everybody is on the same page and has bought into the technology that somebody has chosen to bring into the firm, or maybe it's just that you are using the technology but not necessarily using it to its fullest potential. So we're going to talk about 7 different ways, 7 steps for you to successfully adopt technology into your firm, no matter what size your firm is. And so this may be a little ring true for many of you, but when you go to bring new technology into the firm, if you have more than 1 person that's working there, there may be some protests that happen saying, nope, we don't want any new technology, we're going to continue to do it the way that we've been doing it, and miss out on some real advances of things that could make things a lot easier. Or you may have the firm or people in the firm that adopt some technology but are still doing some things the old way. And so in the technology and especially in the financial services industry, we're finding that a lot of these systems are now working to integrate. So if you have one piece of old technology, a piece of new technology, what you're really doing is prohibiting the ability for these systems to work together to make you most efficient and productive in your day. So making sure that that the technology that you do choose to bring into the firm is adopted. And so when taking a look at that, it's really, really important when we take a look at the 7 steps for adopting technology. The first one is all about begin with the end in mind. This is all about, I took this from Stephen Covey, and thinking about what is it that you actually want to get out of the program. In order to roll out a program successfully, this 7-step process, and this can be used with a CRM, it could be used with a portfolio management system, it could be with a financial planning software. It all plays into what's going to make you successful. So beginning with the end in mind is thinking about what is it that you actually want to get out of the system. One place to store all contact-related information as it relates to a CRM, being able to streamline and track processes and procedures, increasing level of communication. If you know what you want and you have the ability to create that plan to implement technology that's in line with your goals. So thinking about that at the very beginning is going to be important. Engaging others. If you have more than one person in your firm, it is very, very important that there are several people that participate in this process. I find a lot of times that a decision is made to bring technology in by maybe one person, and it's not necessarily the person that is engaged with that software on a daily basis. So making sure that you not only have people from management that are part of making this decision, but engaging others that would be participating or utilizing that technology on a regular basis is going to come through for that. With that said, making sure that several people are actually part of creating the plan and the vision for bringing that into your firm. It's really important for people to participate in the process that you actually are going to use to learn and integrate that technology into your firm's way of business. There's a lot of different ways that you have the ability to do that. One of them is, number one, defining the processes, but number two, making sure that the decision, that the goals, that the conversations that have had, that the processes and the systems are all communicated at this level. So the first three, kind of as you move through that decision-making process, and then once that decision is made, making sure that you communicate the why. The how is this going to affect us? How is it going to affect the business? How is it going to affect the clients? Why is this important? And what is the process that we are going to follow in order to bring this technology into the firm? Once you communicate this, making sure that you gain commitment and buy-in. And sometimes this is the hardest step of the process, number 5. You're going to have some people, thinking back to those cartoons, who say absolutely not, we've always done it this way. You're going to have some that are going to say we are not technology savvy, so we're not going to put in the time, we're not going to invest the time to learn how to do it. So making sure that you gain commitment, and we're going to give you some ideas on how you can do that in just a little bit. This one here is near and dear to my heart, which is training. When we think about training, it is really, really important that you make time for training. If there's not time on the calendar to accomplish or watch or participate in videos or online webinars, and good for you for actually joining the webinar today, you're not emphasizing the true importance and value of what this change and impact this technology is going to have on your business. And then lastly, we're going to talk about celebration and appreciation. We all like a good party. We all love a great pat on the back. And it is really important through this process that you celebrate and appreciate hard work, adoption, implementation, great ideas. And I'm going to give you some ideas on how you can do this here as well. So let's start with the first of beginning with the end in mind. When you take a look at identifying the goals that your system has, being able to ask these questions. So why is it that we're implementing this new system? And what is the desired end result? What is it that we are looking for this system to do? A lot of times when being able to, sorry, just our little chat. It's like a squirrel running outside. Identifying the desired end result. So what is it that you're looking to get out of a portfolio management system? Is it that you're hoping to be able to identify what the stratification among a portfolio is? Or if you are looking to bring in a CRM, specifically client relationship management software, to say, is it going to help you better manage your relationships or be able to house contact data? So what really is the outcome that you're looking for? Looking at the goals, do you want it to bring efficiency? And if you think about goals, okay, you have the goals that you want, but they have to be SMART goals. So they really need to be measurable. They need to have something timely related to it. So being able to determine how are you going to measure success? What does success look like for you? And for what period of time do you want to be able to accomplish those? How is it going to change for the better what you have currently in place? This is what I like to call WIIFM, and we'll hear this a little bit later. What's in it for me? So are they tuned into that radio station, WIIFM? How is it going to better what you deliver to the client? How is it going to deliver or get you out of the office a little bit early, or make it so that you don't have to stay 2 hours late every single night? And identifying who this change is going to impact. So is it only going to impact one person? Is a technology for just one, or is everybody going to be expected to use this technology? So really being able to identify this. When you have the answers to these questions, it's really important, and I used to talk when I used to work for Investors Capital, independent broker-dealer, and I used to work with our advisors on developing business plans. And I cannot many times people create a business plan and take that business plan. Once they write it, it goes into a folder, and then at the end of the year, they pull that business plan out again. And they say, well, how did I do? Well, considering that the goals that you had set for yourself and what you wanted to get and what you wanted to accomplish in the year has been hidden in a folder in your drawer all year, it wasn't sitting right there in front of you. So as you create these, it's really important through the onboarding process of a new technology that you continue to refer back to them and make sure that that onboarding is in accordance with the goals that you have set. Now, that being said, the second point here is making sure that more than one person is involved in the process. If you are a firm of more than one person. If you're a sole proprietor, then you're the one that gets to make the decision. But if you have more than one, 3 or 4, it's one of the suggestions that I recommend is that you have a task force. So if you have maybe 3 people in some cases, maybe it's all of you that participate in this decision-making process. If you have 30 people in your firm, then it's really important, in my recommendation, to create a task force. You say, what is a task force, Julie? Well, the task force really becomes a group of people that include different people within different roles within the firm. It is really important to not have a whole group, let's say a client service, maybe a group of client service people making this decision. It's really important to have different roles so they can give that input because it offers different perspective, insight, and ideas on how this particular technology has the ability to make a difference in their area. I also recommend including tech-savvy and less tech-savvy people. You have new millennials and younger folks that are coming in that were born with a phone in their hand, whereas others may be a little bit more apprehensive to a change in technology. So being able to get the perspective and point of view from both of these people will be really helpful. And then we talked about including one person from each area of the business. And the reason why I say this is a lot of the one-on-one consulting that I do with firms who utilize Juncture, we put together a task force. And I learned early on this mistake not to make again. And we were actually creating workflow inside of their system, redoing all of the workflow that they had, really helping them take advantage of that particular feature. And everybody on the task force was in customer service. And so we built this workflow, we made some changes, rolled it out, and as it got rolled out, you had the financial advisors coming and saying, this doesn't make sense to us. We have something here that's a little bit more important to us, and we need to make sure that we capture this as part of that workflow. So making sure that you have the perspectives and ideas of others and know, okay, this is maybe a concern that someone in that role or in that area of the business has, to make sure that when new things are rolled out, you've thought of all of the different ways that it could impact the different people. When we talk about being able to create processes and thinking about the systems. These are some questions that you will probably want to ask during the sales process. Highly recommend do not wait until after the sales process to ask these questions, whether they're questions that you have internally or they're questions that you have that you need to ask of the company, of the technology that you're bringing in. Do you need any additional hardware or software to support this new program? Sometimes you have newer versions of a software program that only works with a newer version of Outlook or a newer version of any other really software. So you may need to actually upgrade something to make sure that they work together if you want to take advantage of integrations. Thinking about the process that you are going to take to introduce the new system, to learn about the system. So number one, identifying, okay, well, when are we going to announce the fact that we're going to bring this in? And then making sure that they understand what is it that's going to affect them? How is this going to affect them? Then identify for them expected time frames of what the rollout's going to be and what are the steps that the firm and everybody is going to take to get to that point. And then determine how are you going to customize the system. And I say here if applicable because there are some systems that firms use that they're out of the box and there's no customization. It's kind of WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, and there is no customization there. However, at the same time, there are some technologies that are out there that are customizable. For example, both Juncture and Juncture Cloud. You have the ability to create custom fields in the system. So if there isn't a field that we thought of and you have it stored somewhere, you can create a new field to house that information. You have the ability to create customized drop-down lists. So for multiple choice type things, you can determine what goes in there. So for example, if you segment your clients, maybe one firm calls their client tiering system tier 1, 2, 3, and somebody else calls it ABC, and somebody else calls it platinum, gold, silver. You have the ability to customize the system to make sure that it's reflective of your firm's specific needs. So making sure that the information is relevant and determine how are you going to customize it, who's going to customize it, is going to be really important. Will you need to involve any outside help? Where this question goes is this something if you're going to customize, okay, or if you're going to train, can you do it on your own? Or do you need to bring in a consultant? Or do you need to bring in a temporary employee to help upload data into the system? Are you going to go through a migration of that data? Which a lot of firms, I know portfolio management systems, document management systems, they will move the data and the files for you when you purchase a new system. Juncture also does that, where they move your client data for you into the new CRM. How much time can you allow for training? This is something that we talked about at the very beginning to say training is really important, but is 1 hour enough? Do you need to do 10 hours? And I think a lot of this depends on the savviness and the comfort level that people have with learning new technology. Some firms and some people, they could see it, they can get in, they can play, it's intuitive enough and they're going to learn. Or it's similar enough to the previous program that they catch on really quickly. And then you may have others that are a little more resistant to that change and to the new technology, so it's going to take them a little bit longer. For example, we have a new firm that's actually onboarding Juncture as we speak, and they had purchased some private training sessions. So we have training that's included, but they wanted something that was a little bit more customized, and they wanted to use those sessions for consulting. So once they got up and running, when it comes to customizing, they wanted some guidance on what should we do, so going through a discovery process, etc. They were very excited to do that, but as they dug down into it, there were a few people in the firm that were just not comfortable with that move. And so they decided to actually change that up a little bit and say, you know what, Julie, I would prefer for you to take an hour with each of the people here and really address their concerns, their needs, make sure that they are comfortable with what they need to do on a daily basis for us to be able to make that move. So thinking about how much time you allow for training and maybe what that budget looks like and how much training is necessary. And a lot of this will depend on, again, that first step, what is it that you want to get out of the system, and the answers to those previous questions. Number 4 here is communicate, and this here is where the breakdown often happens. I talk to new clients all the time, and they know that they are changing over to a new client relationship management software, so a CRM. When they move that over, there really was a disconnect between the people who were making the decisions and the people that were actually using the program. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Making sure that that communication and the what's in it for me, how is this going to benefit me, what does that look like, going to be very, very important. So communicating expectations. Do you expect them to be in the system all day long? What are you expecting to get out of the system? What are the goals that you have? How are you expecting to use it? So as a manager, maybe you want to pull productivity reports out of a system. As a, let's say in regards to a planner, so working perhaps on life insurance or investments, what kind of information do you want to be able to store inside of the system? Do you want to pull reports out revolving around life insurance or long-term care or disability or some other kind of auto or disability? What are your expectations to be able to rely on the system? Because that's going to depend what kind of information you put into the system. And so being able to create a process around that and making people feel comfortable with that process will be important. Consistent messaging, making sure that everybody hears the same message at the same time, if possible, but more importantly, role-based communication. As I work with firms and I do training one-on-one with these firms, being able to talk to the people in the different roles in accordance with how they do their job. Honestly, advisors don't necessarily care, in some cases, about how to actually create and fill out paperwork. But there are some sole proprietors that they need to know that. So understanding what people need to know, what they do on a daily basis, and being able to adjust the message to be meaningful to the person who's receiving it. And then really communicate with benefits versus features. So what that would look like is, let's talk about the juncture, for example. So I might say, wow, or I could say, let's put it this way, wow, we've got this workflow and it's going to allow you to take this process and identify the process of onboarding a new account, and it's going to assign the actions as they need to. Versus think about not having to think about the next step of a process or where a client is in a process, and just being able to go into a system, open their record, and be able to identify in one quick view where somebody is and what the next step is. So that's the difference of benefit versus feature. And when you're talking about new technology, making sure you talk about the benefits versus this great shiny new feature. Because just as somebody had said, please use less acronyms and state the words rather than maybe CRM. But in this case, being able to share the benefits versus the features that are there. So maybe what you need to do when we talk about motivating people and getting some buy-in is maybe you have some resistant or reluctant or existent people that are in the firm or on your team, and trying to get some people to move from merely compliant to committed or compelled. The key to moving people up this continuum is being able to systematically address and attack the specific reasons why someone might be in the quote-unquote red zone down here on the bottom left. You need to be sure to pinpoint those reasons why that person is in the red zone before you can figure out how to address them. So you may have some people that will say, all right, I'm not going to do it, and I'm going to influence others not to do it. But then you may have some others that say, well, why should I do it? And if nobody says so, I'm not going to do it. And then there are others that are compliant that say, great, I have to do it. I can do it when I'm told to, but they're not going to take the initiative. And then you have the compelled and the obsessed that say, I'm going to do it and I'm going to lead others to do it. So anybody, depending on what that personality is, they have the ability to capture this here. And so moving a person up this continuum for positive and lasting change is really a process that unfolds over time, and understanding how to address that. So actually a fellow colleague of mine was working with a firm, and they were also developing some workflow. So being able to capture that process and putting it in the system and allowing the system to delegate the work that needs to be done. And this woman was in a different office, and she was very reluctant to walk my colleagues through the process that she follows to, might have been onboarding a new client. And so it was week after week after week that she was just not giving this stuff up. And when the consultant actually spoke to her, it came out that she was afraid that if she told anybody what she did on a regular basis, that she would be out of a job. So that is what you really need to get to when you talk about adoption and understand where people are coming from. So understand specifically and thoroughly what is it that impacts and drives that attitude behavior. Analyze why that person's why they're there. Have those conversations and make sure you have that communication. And a lot of times, if you do the things that we outlined in the first 4, then this is actually going to be a lot easier than it would be if you didn't. So they all certainly build on each other. Some things that you can do for this commitment and buy-in to help move people up that continuum but reward people that are already at the top is determine a product ambassador. I cannot tell you how many different articles I see in magazines recently about adoption and training and how important it is when it comes to technology. This was actually one that came out of Investment News. And so talking about when adopting new technology, appoint an ambassador, especially if you are if you have more than one person within your firm. But Greg Friedman, who's the president of Private Ocean Wealth Management, is also the president of Juncture, and talks about all of the different systems that he uses. Each one of those systems has an owner or somebody who stays on top of it to be able to know what's new, what is it that might be rolling out, any issues or problems that they may have. So it's that go-to person, it's that key person, it's that cheerleader that they have. And then also identify your change agents. These are those compelled or obsessed people that can be all throughout the organization to be able to help affect positive change. Be those cheerleaders. Let them talk, let them be vocal about how this particular program has made a difference or is going to make a difference, or strides that somebody has taken to help it make a difference. And explaining relational awareness and impact. So this is, let's say somebody is onboarding Juncture. People think sometimes that this CRM software is it's a plug and play. You can put your stuff in and you can go. And yes, you can. You absolutely can. But if you really want to adopt to the deepest level, it's going to understand to say you're not going to, on day one, be able to create workflow because there are some thought processes that need to happen before then in order for that to happen. So thinking about, okay, what is the impact this is going to have? I might need to take an hour or two on the front end, but know that that hour or two that I commit and that I take on the front end to set something up, it is going to save me 20, 200, however many hours on the other end. So understanding what that impact is going to be, it may be that things might slow down a little bit. For example, a client of mine was previously taking a look at the effectiveness, or really the productivity. He has a turnaround time. When he receives paperwork from a client, it needs to go out within 24 hours. And so he has a 24-hour turnaround time, business time, in order for that to go out. And so he, inside of Juncture, actually has a workflow that he's created, and there's one step in that workflow that he has his eyes on all the time to make sure that they are not lagging, and that when they send it to an insurance company, when they send it to a custodian, whomever it is, it goes out very, very quickly, and that the client's not waiting on them. Well, he takes these statistics and he downloads to Excel. He's an Excel whiz, and he showed me this scatter graph plot. And he said, you know, here where we don't see that that's being turned around, I know it's because we were onboarding a new technology system at that time. And so things were taking a little bit more time to actually get through. And it's also the summertime, so people were out on vacation, and so we had people picking up the slack. So understanding what that impact is going to be and what the expectations are around that. Probably the most important is allowing a feedback loop. So if somebody is not happy, if somebody is disgruntled, if someone is frustrated, if somebody is having trouble, making sure that there is something that they can do to provide feedback. One of the things that I recommend inside of Juncture is you have the ability, as I mentioned, to create templates. Now, you can create a template for a workflow to say, this is what we do every time we have our insurance policy, so we need to make sure that we get the medical done, we need to make sure we get the policy delivered, we have all this stuff that we have to fill out and do, so you can cross your I's, dot your T's, or the other way around, and be able to go on your way and know that there isn't anything that's falling through the cracks. But you can also create a workflow for a single-step workflow. And so I create for many firms something that's called the Juncture change request. So we were talking a little bit earlier about being able to customize. If somebody goes in and says, gosh, I would really like to search on this tag, but it's not in the system, they can add that, and it goes to a specific person, it gets reviewed, and it gets put into the system. If they wanted to create a workflow, they can put in the request to create that workflow and start that process. So it's a one way that you can establish a feedback loop. And then also, especially as you're onboarding a new program, or if you've had a program for a while and feel like, we need to re-adopt, having some user group meetings and having them identify what their struggles are, and then being able to bring those struggles somewhere else. So bring it to the company, bring it to the system that you have there. And then probably the biggest one is offer goal-based incentives. So Greg Friedman, who again is the owner and creator of Juncture, in his firm they use Juncture, surprise, surprise, but their quarterly goals, their bonuses, are based off of Juncture is part of that. So if you're not using, you're losing. So losing out. So it's one way to be able to capture and see the buy-in here. Training. Once you get that buy-in, or in some cases training helps with the buy-in, a lot of times there are people might do training on their own, so within their firm one person might learn it and then share it with others. Others actually do better not taking direction from somebody in the firm, but taking direction from a consultant or a trainer for the specific company. So number one, figuring out what is it that moves people forward and through that continuum, and what kind of training is it that they like. There are so many different ways that people learn. You have online learning, kind of like what we're doing right now. You have on-site training, which you do at conferences when you go attend a conference. You may have group training. You may have one-on-one training. Or you may have role-based training. We talked about role-based and talking about the messaging that goes out to those people as well. So online group is much like what we're doing. I'm taking a shot in the dark that this information is going to be beneficial to you. If it were one-on-one training, I'd talk to you about adoption first. I'd figure out what it is that your needs or your goals are, and then would take that and to deliver it so that it's specific to you. That's really the difference, where group usually is something that is predefined, where one-on-one in some cases is much more customized. And then the role-based, say, great, we're going to meet with this specific role. So maybe we're going to do the administrators first, and then we're going to meet with the life insurance agents second, and then we're going to meet with the financial planners third, and be able to tailor the message and the training to those specific people. Instructor-led or self-directed. This is, some people like to hear somebody and know that somebody is live and know that they have the opportunity to ask questions. Self-directed usually comes in video format or interactive format, or just watching a PowerPoint online. So depending on where that is, a lot of the different technology companies out there offer both of these. So it's certainly worth inquiring. And then you have the out-of-the-box and the customized, which I already talked about a little bit when I talked about group or one-on-one. And so depending on what the needs are, certainly will help you to know, but these are a lot of the training options that are out there, especially for folks in the financial services industry. We're seeing, from a training perspective, a lot shorter videos. Okay, they're not hour-long videos, they're a lot shorter, they get to the point. If you want to know how to do something, you can watch something for 2 minutes. And you can watch it on a smartphone and follow along on your computer, or you can have multiple screens and watch a video and then pause it and then do something there. So everybody learns a little bit different. And maybe some folks don't have the time during the day to do it. They want to do it at night before they go to bed. Great way to put yourself to sleep. So for those of you who are looking to get a little shut-eye, this probably has done it for you now that we're kind of nearing our 40-minute mark. And probably my favorite here is celebrating and appreciating. Acknowledgement for innovations, ideas, suggestions. All users should be encouraged. And there are a lot of different opportunities for you to do this throughout onboarding the new technology, as well as continued use of the program. The more celebration, the more appreciation, the more recognition that happens, the more engaged the employees become in the technology. I highly encourage for Juncture users, because it's really what helps you manage your day. It helps you manage your relationships. It helps you manage all the workload that you have. I encourage firms to use these in their team meetings, whether you have weekly or monthly or biweekly team meetings. Being able to use the system to help facilitate those meetings helps to increase adoption, because people know if it's not in there, it's not being seen. But being able to, in your team meetings, actually say something and be able to recognize things that people have done well. So maybe they've taken it upon themselves to learn a new area of a program, learn about how to create a new report that's going to benefit folks. You can certainly recognize that. You can give out awards, the best innovative workflow, let's say, or the most helpful tip somebody shared. I love making the recommendation of a Technology Tip Tuesday. where maybe it rotates, everybody does it every Tuesday, every other Tuesday or something, but come up with something new that you want to share to say, hey, this is just a little something that might make a big difference in your day. And be able to say, okay, well, this was the most impactful technology tip, or this was the most impactful best practice that we have come up with. This was the most impactful customization that we've had. So being able to give some awards, maybe it's twice a year, maybe it's once a year at a company retreat or something like that. And then here, talking about recognition and recognizing the people who maybe helped to onboard and were part of that onboarding team. And, thinking about recognizing people who have gone above and beyond and who have fully adopted, because there are going to be many that have not. There's a lot of times when we have multi-layer firms who the principal may not be bought into the new technology, and it isn't necessarily a priority. It's something that has been pushed for some people in the firm, but not from the top down. Sometimes when you don't have that buy-in from the top, the ones below, it's one of those lead by example, or not a do as I say, not as I do. So definitely leading by example and getting everybody to buy into that process, and hopefully it becomes a lot easier for you. I wish that each piece of technology was like Staples and had that easy button, but they don't. So how can you make it as easy as possible? Thinking about and starting and working through this technology adoption continuum. If you, as I mentioned before, if you've adopted something, I encourage you, if it's not working the way you thought, think about a readoption strategy. Go back to begin with the end in mind and be able to ask the questions such as, why are we here in the first place? What is it that we're looking for? I have discovery calls with firms day in and day out. The first question I always ask, why did you choose Juncture? What is it that you are looking for? What do you want this system to do for you? What are the most impactful features that you're looking forward to making a difference for your firm? Getting those questions helps me to walk them through the process and to be able to engage others during that process and communicate with others that there are going to be some changes and they want them to be part of those changes. And through that communication, you're going to gain commitment. It may not be from everybody at the very beginning, but eventually if you have those change agents, they see the impact that the naysayers may see the impact there. And sometimes, again, with training and making it relevant to them. Remember that WIIFM, what's in it for me? Tune them into that radio station, because if they understand, they'll buy in. They'll hopefully participate in training, and I'll say training is probably the one area where I see firms struggle because they think they don't need it or they can do it on their own. But I want you to think, how many of you know how to transfer a phone call? And if you don't know how to transfer a phone call, how long does it take you to ask somebody to transfer that phone call or to come over and help you transfer a phone call? It takes a little bit of time. You're taking that other person away, pulling them over, so now every single time they're asking that same question. People have to take time out of their day to come over and help. Whereas if at the very beginning people learned how to transfer a phone call and had that training at the very beginning, a lot of time would be saved on the other end. So see, it could be technology, it could be a phone system. But more importantly, and probably the most fun, celebrate and appreciate it. So I hope this 7 steps of adopting technology, this continuum, and kind of digging into this has been helpful to you, maybe opened your eyes to a few things. Maybe as you adopted your technology before, you missed a couple of these steps. So I think it's a great opportunity to go back and redefine what it is that you're looking from a system. making sure that it is meeting your needs, and if it is, kind of walking yourself or your firm through that. I know I made some references to Juncture as we went throughout the presentation today. Some of you may be Juncture users, some maybe not. If you're not and you would like some information, you can certainly contact our sales department. That contact information is in here, or any follow-up questions from today certainly could be geared towards me if I don't answer them here at training@juncture.com. So that is all.
Thanks, Julie. Just want to remind our webinar participants that if you'd like to ask a question, you can do so by typing your question in the question box on the right side of your screen. We're going to pause a moment before Terry gets us kicked off with some questions for Julie.
Great. Thanks, Brendan, and thanks so much, Julie, for the great presentation today. I did have some questions, and I just wanted to kick off this session. You mentioned that having the time to sit down and look at the system that you're using and adopting technology into your business, it can be kind of a daunting experience for some. How or what are some signs for folks to know when it is the time to upgrade? Are there some different things that they should be looking out for? Some might think that their system's working well for them and they don't need to make any change. But what would you say are some top signs that it's time to adopt some new technology in your business?
That's a really great question. I think I would say some top signs are, number one, first and foremost, maybe it is slow. Okay, maybe that program is slow. You're like, gosh, this isn't working. Maybe it's the program that you need to upgrade. Maybe it is your system that you need to upgrade. So slowness or speed, that's certainly one of them that I would recommend. Another one is that, as I mentioned at the very beginning, one of the things that I see quite frequently is the integrations and the forward thinking that happens with these integrations between the different systems. So for example, Juncture integrates with portfolio management systems. They integrate with custodians. They integrate with document management systems. It integrates with communication systems. It integrates with financial planning systems. It integrates with form applications, filling software. So there's a lot of integrations that happen. And so one of the things is that if there are systems that you are using that maybe don't integrate, maybe a new version of that, of the system that you're using does integrate, then an upgrade. Or maybe you have systems that are not integrating, but you would find benefit with that, maybe looking at an alternative system that might bring you some more value. The other is businesses change over time. You may begin as a sole proprietor selling life insurance, and you evolve into, a really large life insurance firm, or it could be a full-fledged financial planning firm, whatever it may be. And as you start, if you are that sole proprietor, your needs and systems are going to be a lot different than the systems it is that you need when you expand the people that are working with you. So there may be some systems that could help you to be more efficient than what you were just working on your own. So those would be three signs. Number one, it could be business growth, it could be integrations, or it just could be speed of making things happen inside of the system.
Great. Thanks, Julie. And we are having some questions in relation to what exactly a CRM is. CRM is a term that is defined as a customer relation management tool, and it refers to practices, strategies, and technologies that companies use to manage and analyze their customer interactions and data throughout the customer life cycle with the overall goal of performing their business, essentially. Julie, could you maybe touch on that a little further?
Yeah, so the CRM, the customer or client relationship management, in my opinion, it goes so far beyond just the management of clients and those relationships, but more so the firm as a whole, because you're not just storing contact information. I think of it as the new age Rolodex, okay? For those of you who are on here that know what a Rolodex is, when I started in sales, I had a Rolodex, and so in that Rolodex, you had the person's name, you had their phone number, their address, and back then, maybe an email, but maybe not. And so you hand wrote everything, and in some cases, honestly, I still do. But what the CRM does is it doesn't just house that little bit of information to contact somebody, but it broadens that so that you have it's really a working file for that client. So instead of having a file inside of a file cabinet, you now have a file inside of a system that not only has the contact information in it, but you also have dates of births and social security numbers. You have, you can capture what's their favorite drink, so when they come into the office you can have that ready, or what's their favorite snack or cookie, and you can have those when they come in and you have a meeting with them. But then all of the things that you do for those clients, copies of their paperwork, all of this stuff is in this system, that the information that you put in then allows you to pull reports out. So if I want a list of all of my clients, I can do that. 2 clicks, you've got that. If you want to send an email to excuse me, all of your clients that have a birthday today, you can search the system for that, initiate one email that gets sent out to multiple people, customized to them, as well as being able to capture everything that you do. So when the client comes, they come in for a meeting with you and they say, I'm paying you this money, what are you doing for me? You can actually print off history to say, we've had all of these phone calls, we filled out this paperwork for you, we redid your estate plan, we upped your life insurance, we did another financial plan for you. So you have that history. So from a what have you done for me lately, but also from a compliance perspective, the decisions that you make, are they in line with what the client's goals are? So every decision that you make, you can actually capture inside of a note in there. So now you have the proof of, okay, when somebody says, why did you move, or why did you suggest this particular insurance, this is why. Okay, this is why we went with this particular fixed annuity. This is what it's going to do for the client. So for me, it goes beyond just customer relationship management of capturing that Rolodex type information, but really helping you to manage the relationship as a whole, and in return, being able to manage the office.
Great. Thanks, Julie. And I just wanted to say a couple things. We've been in a partnership with Junxure for almost a year now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Junxure. It's the most awarded CRM for financial advisors. There are many CRMs, I'm using that acronym out there, but that are out there in the world in the world today. Many that you can choose from, and it can be kind of overwhelming to determine which one is best for you. Junxure, like I said, is a CRM that thinks like an advisor. There's a reason why it's been awarded the best CRM for financial advisors, because of how they streamline the workflow, how they reduce your overhead, how they provide their clients with top service. Junxure has a 98% satisfaction rate. NAIFA members do receive a discount, and Junxure will help you get to where you need to be, to the level of your comfort with adopting a new technology in your business. So I just wanted to throw that out there. They're very willing to help you get to that point, from point A to point Z and beyond. So feel free to reach out to Junxure after this call. Feel free to get in touch with myself at NAIFA National if you have any additional questions. But I thank you all for attending on the call today if there's no other questions.
Great. Thanks very much, Julie and Terry. Just as a reminder, you will be sent an email with a web link that will contain a link to the recording of this webinar. And this concludes the NAIFA webinar. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.